I'm alright, Bruno. How are you?
Yeah,
Hello.
very well. Very well. Cool. Yeah, so I mean, these things always start with a few people, and then before you know it, there'll be loads in. So good time to get any questions that you've got in now, and then we can go through those straight away. So
Um,
how can I help?
could I just have one question. That's all, Bruno. That's fine.
Yeah, of course.
Do you know how the graduate outcomes project finishes on November the 30th? And you know how obviously I'm on graduate outcomes and some of the other interviewers. What would happen after November the 30th? What would happen to us? Like, do we go into a different project or anything? I was just
Uh,
wondering what would happen after the project ends.
yes, I mean, it's a perfectly valid question. Yeah, so graduate outcomes, this cohort will end November 30th. However, it runs all year round. Um, so there's four cohorts, A, B, C, and D. Um, cohorts D runs September to November, and then it resets to cohort A, which starts a couple of weeks into November. Sorry, a couple of weeks into December, and runs until March-ish, and then goes to cohort B, cohort C, and then we come back to cohort D. Um, so yeah, obviously there is quite a periods. The other cohorts require less total surveys. So with cohort D, I can't remember offhand, but I think we need about 150,000 completes ish. That's off the top of my head, so I might be completely wrong. The other ones are much smaller. I think we only need about 30,000 completes for cohort A. Um, so they are smaller cohorts to be sure, but yeah, it becomes much more performance based. So if you're hitting all your targets and everything, and you're, getting your strike rate's really good, then yeah, I can't see why you wouldn't be offered more work. It's you'd still be on the panel, and obviously other jobs do come up as and when we bid for them. There's always different types of jobs running throughout the year. So next year we might have more B2B stuff, we might have more consumer stuff. It just depends on what projects are coming up. But yeah, it's not like graduate outcomes just ends fully. This cohort comes to an end. Usually there's about a 2 week break, and then the next cohort would start.
Okay, thanks, Bruno.
All good. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. We've got a few more people in now. So very quickly, I'll just say hello. Nice to see you all. If I haven't met you before, my name is Bruno. I'm the training manager here at IFF. So yeah, we'll be talking about graduate outcomes today. If you've got any questions at all, please do just fire them out. We've got a raise hand function that's quite useful for me to see who's waiting to ask a question. So please do use that. It's just at the top of the screen. Thank you, Joanne. Yeah, I will say any shift related questions. Hibak, our panel coordinator, will be joining us at about the 20 to 5, quarter to 5 mark. So if you do have any shift related questions, do feel free to pop them in the chat for now, because I will not be the best person to ask. I'll do my best if it's something that I can help with, but otherwise, best to put them in the chat, and Hibak can respond to them once she gets here. So for now, we'll just keep going. Joanne, you had a question. Let's get through.
I did have. I'm just trying to think what it was now because you've just spoken. I got it on the tip of my tongue when I put it up, and now you've just spoke. Um, it was to do with along all the lines of that. Because I've got 4 years experience, 4 to 5 years experience elsewhere doing telephone interviewing. And I'm really down on my targets. And I've got over 30 years experience doing loads of other stuff like admin, finance, presenting. First, I've got first degree as well. And yeah, I just don't know what I'm doing wrong because
So
before, like in my other ones, and I'm actually working elsewhere at the moment. I won't tell you who it is, but yeah, I am doing two jobs. Um, and yeah, I just don't know what I'm doing wrong because I seem to be getting a lot that are taking ages because quite a lot of them are saying yes to nearly everything on A1. And then I get some that are changing their mind and they start umming and ahhing and then having. I mean, I'm used to what I used to do in my other jobs, and what I have done is as in a survey, I'm used to getting like a lot worse than what this age group range is. Um, so yeah, it's not like I haven't got that experience. If you see what I mean, it's just I
Yeah,
don't know what I'm doing
absolutely.
because I'm like trying to put everything in. When it comes to the questions where about the duties, I'm trying to put everything in there because that's what you do. Because I'm used to probing and stuff. And I also suffer really bad with fibromyalgia, which does hinder me a lot. Short story, really horrible divorce that led me to dismiss due to ill health, so that start again. So that's why I go into telephone interviewing. But yeah, now I'm just like coming to sort of I've done the 16 hours training and I got this email, so now I just feel deflated and it's just like getting to me.
So, firstly, I will say for any reasonable adjustments we can make, we will always do our best to accommodate wherever we can. If you do have any needs that fall out with what we can already accommodate, we'll always see if there's more that we can do. Some people have just going off my experience with it. Whenever we've done training, I've sent over training materials to people in advance because some of them have memory issues, so they had to do stuff. Ahmad, I'm just going to mute you for the time being. Then, yeah, some people, have nurses who visit, so they need to take extended breaks. We can always accommodate. If you do have any needs that you feel we could accommodate better, I'll put in an email into the chat. If you send Hibak an email,
IFFresearch.com. I've actually emailed 4 times. I've not got any replies.
So was that to Hibak or to Shift? Sorry.
Well, actually, one did go to Hibak last night, but I have sent them to Hibak before. But also, I've emailed Shifts 4 times about it.
Yeah, I mean, Shifts have been massively overwhelmed. They're just catching back up.
I know they're loaded because obviously you've had this great big I understand that. It's just like you get within 48 hours, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, it's been a week, I've not had anything at all. So
yeah,
yeah, and then I'm just thinking, oh, again, it's about a few different things as well. One of them, in fact, was pay as well. That has just this second been, as I spoke just before the meeting, that was just sorted because that's been going on for a few weeks since I did my training. So yeah, hopefully that's now sorted. But yeah, looking at my payslip, I just don't know what period it is. It doesn't say any dates to and from. I don't know if that includes my training because we were promised that it was going to include the live trial we did on the Friday. Was it the 19th, I think, when you all got paid last, from memory? I think it was the 19th.
Don't get paid fortnightly, but I think the last one should have been.
Yeah, we were all promised to do that if we filled in a form, so I did it straight away. But then I didn't get any pay, and that's one of the things I have been emailing about as well.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll do is I'll put in an email address into the chat if you've not already got it. Interviewerpayroll@iffresearch.com. That's a good place to start for any pay related queries. It's separate to Shift, so there shouldn't be too much of a delay there. But yeah, interviewerpayroll@iffresearch.com. They should be able to go from
any emails and places because the only ones I've got is the IFF, is the Shifts one, and then I've got Hibak as well. But then there's the others that I was doing before. Basically, I had one saying I wasn't going to get paid at one point, which I mean that was sorted out eventually, back after a couple of weeks. But yeah, because I'd left Augur on, but I'd actually logged out of it, so I don't know what had happened there. And yeah, so it doesn't really say exactly what you're getting paid for, if that includes a live trial and stuff. So yeah,
so yeah, I mean all live trials are always they are always paid as part of the it should be as part of the first week's pay, I think, or first payroll. But I think after that it is backdated once you move to the So once you pass your probationary period, it's backdated after that for the new rate of pay. But yeah, for any payroll questions, best bet is to send an email over to interviewerpayroll@iffresearch.com. I popped it in the chat if you want to take note of that.
I've just looked at the chat. Whereabouts is it?
So at the top, you should have a line of options there.
Yeah, I've just scrolled down.
Grab it from there. That's your best bet. But going back to your other point about kind of general performance, look, I mean, obviously, I can't speak to without seeing TL reports and all the rest. I can't tell what you've been doing this way and that. But you mentioned kind of like taking extra or taking more time on surveys. That's always a difficult one. With people who are doing a lot, that is just one of the pitfalls. Obviously, if they've said that they're doing this, it is going to take more time. However, what we can do is make sure that we are maintaining good control with that interviewer, with that respondent, sorry. So we can make sure that we're saying, to keep them on track, we need to kind of draw them back onto the question that we're talking about. One thing that we find often with graduate outcomes, more so than other things, is that people will get a bit distracted. They will start talking about things that aren't strictly relevant to the question that we're asking. So whether that is, telling us what they did at the pub last night or just talking about some unrelated nonsense, happens more on graduate outcomes than other jobs. Best thing to do there is just politely interrupt them and pull them back to the question that we're asking about. So obviously we need to do that politely. Best thing to do is use their name to interrupt them. Obviously we've got their name at the top of the screen, so just use that. So John, I'm just going to stop you for a second there because I am just really cautious of the time. I did tell you it'd take 10 minutes. We're already at the 5-minute mark or wherever we are. So I'm just going to get back on track onto this next question, which is, and then just launch straight into it. Or if they've not answered the question that you've asked, just again interrupt them politely. John, I'm just going to stop you for a second. I just want to go back to the specifics of this question. So we're just talking about the type of employment that you're in, or whatever the question is. So would that be on a contract, on a fixed term contract, all the rest of the options, whatever it was, and just pull them back to it, because we don't want to we don't want to get sidetracked. We don't want to make people kind of have the ability to go off on tangents. Sorry, Joanna, see you just rejoined. I was just saying, yeah, it's always fine to just interrupt them slightly. Yes, yeah. Sorry, I saw you.
Sorry, yeah, my screen just went off, and I missed everything you were saying. Sorry,
that's
I don't know if you realised I went to the.
I saw you dropped off. This is all going to be recorded and I'll upload it to YouTube once we're done, so you can just go back and recover that. Obviously I don't want to just go over the same point sometimes, but yeah, it'll be on YouTube after we're done, so you can just recover it there. That's all right. But yeah, I was just saying, kind of, it's always fine to just interrupt people politely. And how we do that, obviously, as long as we do it politely, people aren't going to get offended or worried. If we interrupt them by saying, John, shut up, then yeah, they're going to have complaints. But as long as we just say, John, I'm just cautious of the time. I don't want to take up any more of your time than I need to. I want to make sure you can go back to doing whatever it is you want to do for the rest of the evening. Just for now, I'm just going to refocus us on this and just make sure that we are, getting them to stick to the question that's being asked.
I mean, I'm used to doing that because that's what I've been doing for however long, many years now. But it's not that. For some reason, they all a lot of them seem to be taking long, and I can't get them to shorten it, even if I'm trying to get them to do it, in the polite way as we do.
Yeah. I mean, I think the best thing to do there is, if you're noticing there's a pattern and noticing that this is happening a lot more than, perhaps to other interviewers, grab your team leader and ask them to have a listen to the call that you just had. Say one went on for 20 minutes. Ask them to take a listen to that call and see where they would advise that you change things up. Or maybe, maybe it was just an unlucky one and they just had a million things that they were doing. There's not much we can do in those ones. But...
Yeah, I've actually had 2 or 3 team leaders say that they will listen to me and get back to me, because they've said they'll listen to my long calls and they've not got back to me.
So is that while you've been on shift with them?
Well, yeah. Well, when I've said about it, and one of them even said at the end, well, yeah, I'm definitely going to listen to that long call and then I'll get back to you with any notes and stuff. But obviously they must have listened and realised, no, there isn't anything that they can do about it, because it was just the fact that I got. And then one day as well, I had really for tech issues with not being able to hear, and the customers couldn't hear me. So you could scrub 4 hours out of a shift because I just basically did not do much work. So they got at the very end of the shift.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with tech issues, there's not a huge amount that we can do there because, there's, if there's tech issues, there's tech issues.
Yeah.
What I would say in that case, look, if you ask a team leader to have a listen to your calls and then they haven't got back to you with any feedback, if you just send me a message on either WebEx or via email, and just let me know who you spoke to if they didn't give you feedback, and then I'll just have a quiet word with them, and then we can move forward with getting more feedback, because obviously that's something that we want you guys to be getting all the time, and if you're not, that's something that I can make sure that you guys get, because it's something that you'll need. But yeah, if ever you feel like you're not getting the support you need, please do feel free, and this goes for everyone, not just in this situation, please do reach out to me either on WebEx or via email. You can always get in touch with myself or anyone at IFF. It's always the same format. It's always first name dot last name at iffresearch.com. So if you do want to message me on WebEx, you can just use the search bar at the top of the screen, and just paste in my my email address, and it should just pop up. So do feel free to message me. I'm going to move on to anyone else who's got questions. If you do have a question, please use the raise hand button at the top, because it just lets a natural kind of queue form, and then I can just see who's got questions to ask. At the top of the screen, you should just see a little hand. It says raise, and if you just hit that, that'll let me see who's got questions. So with that in mind, Lloyd, you got in there nice and quick. Fire away.
Yeah. Hi, Bruno. I think the biggest question would be how to probe in a very polite way with someone who's being rather one-worded or very short with you. What would you suggest to be a polite way to probe?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's always an awkward one. When we get to the probing questions, asking what you do at what you mainly do in your job and what the company mainly does, people can get kind of cagey. They can be a bit kind of muted and not really give as much information as we want. That is always an awkward one. When it comes to probing, obviously, as you said, it can be difficult to think of how to do it in a polite way. I think in general, a lot of it comes down to your tone and how you ask things. So as long as you sound curious and kind of attentive to what they're saying, you won't come across as rude unless you're actively trying to come across as rude. So I wouldn't worry too much from that perspective. When people give one-word answers, one of the easiest things you can do is mirror exactly what they've just said. So what do you mainly do in your job? Receptionist. A receptionist? And literally just make it a question. People are naturally have a natural kind of innate want to explain things that someone doesn't understand. We all like being able to show off something that we know, and that goes for everything from quantum mechanics to literally explaining what your job is. We have this desire to teach people stuff. We all do. It is just something that we have in the back of our brain. We like being able to show off a bit and sound knowledgeable. So when we ask someone a mirroring question, so if someone says, yeah, I'm a receptionist, and we say, a receptionist, in their brain, obviously, they're not actively thinking, but their subconscious says, this person doesn't know what a receptionist is. Wow. Okay, let's break it down then. And they will naturally just explain it in a very straightforward way. Some of it is, that's always the simplest thing to do. Mirroring, just repeating back what they've said as a question, nice and easy. It gets them to expand on stuff. If we want to just kind of naturally, conversationally expand on stuff, questions like, what does that entail? How would you explain that to someone who'd never heard of it before? You can be honest with people. Look, so I need to make sure that I get, your job assigned into its correct role. Now, I can't be biased. I can't assume anything on your behalf. So I might know what a receptionist is, but if you had to explain it to someone who had no idea what that job entails, how would you describe it? What kind of things do you do when you get to work in the morning? How do you plan out the rest of your day? What are your main responsibilities? As long as we're asking questions in an open and curious way, that's always the main thing. Because I mean, yes, some people will have jobs that they think of as very mundane, very easy to understand, but we need to get across to them that it may well be something that we are very familiar with. It might be a company that we're very familiar with, but we have to approach this from a, we've got no idea what this person does, because we can't be biased. If we write in, you know, they work at the Disney Corporation, we know what the Disney Corporation is. We can't fill that out though, because that would be us answering the question, not them. It's
Yeah.
about getting them to expand on it naturally. So yeah, using things like mirroring, very easy to deploy. You know, if that person did say, "Oh, I work at Disney," and we say, "Oh, cool. So what does that company mainly do?" And they say, "Well, they're Disney. They do like, you know, animation and films and stuff." So films and stuff. And again, it's just naturally getting them to expand on things. And again, like, what sort of animation do they make? What sort of films do they make? You know, and then, oh, they make children's films. Brilliant. Is that all they make? Okay,
Yeah.
and just keep the conversation going. And I think, you know, approach it as if you had never heard of that before, because, you know, they might think that you sound a bit weird, and that's all right. As long as, you know, we are approaching it to get that information out of them, that's the main thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, understood. Thanks.
Nice
Thanks,
one.
Bruno.
Cool. I can't see any other hands up, but I assume there are more questions because there's quite a few people here. So yeah, if you do just use the raise hand button, that's great. Otherwise, feel free to unmute yourself and shout out. If you have questions, fire away. All right. Well, yes, Patricia.
Hi, hello. So my question is not necessarily about the calls. It's just about an email that I've received earlier today, and I'm not really sure if it's from IFF or not. And I wanted to confirm if you would know anything about it, or
Absolutely.
yeah, okay. So it was just an email. It was like an invitation to my ePay window, something about asking for like our personal details and stuff for payroll. And I'm not sure if that's from IFF. Like we haven't really gotten any communications on that.
So yeah, my ePay window is the payroll service that we use for payslips.
Right.
Yeah, I obviously, who does it say who the email is from?
Yeah, so the email is from, well, it says do not reply at myepaywindow.com.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that should be fine. Anything that's from us, obviously, we'll start IFF or at iffresearch.com. But yeah, my ePay window is the payslip service that we use. That is all fine. But absolutely the right approach. If ever you've got any queries, wonders, not 100% sure about an email that's come through, the best thing to do is flag it by either emailing, or asking your team leader who can check it, or send it to Shifts. Obviously, as the recruitment period has now ended, Shifts will be able to reply faster and faster.
Right. Okay.
So we will get to the point where you'll get a pretty quick response. But yes, absolutely. If ever you get an email that you're not 100% sure on, definitely flag it. And that's always the right thing to do. Because yeah, much better to be safe than put your details into something that's about. But yes, my ePay window is the service that we use.
Okay, thanks for confirming that. You're right. Better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. Neymar.
So I wanted to ask, yesterday was my first shift in quite a while. So I had two questions. How do I sort of control the conversation? Because sometimes you come across people that like talking a lot and they want to tell you everything, but then sometimes it goes off track. Like, how do I try to like keep the direction going and not like be on a call for too long? And then also on top of that, like sometimes I catch myself doing something unintentionally where I was like, oh, I know this might be a bit of a silly question after they just told me if they work in the NHS, and I have to ask again, do you work in the NHS? I guess I don't know if it's the most professional thing. Oh, this might sound a bit silly or repetitive. Is there anything like that I can say instead? Or because sometimes I do notice they get a bit agitated when you're repeating the same thing, and they're like, oh, but I just did tell you that kind of thing.
Yes. So I'll answer the second one first and then go back to the first point. Yes, I'm well aware it is a bit awkward, especially if someone has said, like, I work in an NHS trust, and then we ask them loads of details about it, and then it comes up, and do you work in the NHS? That is always awkward, I'm well aware. So we can't preface any of the questions. We can't add anything before it by, like, saying, you know, I know this is going to sound like an odd question, but what I would say is it's all right to, once you've asked it, say, look, I know we just asked about that. It is just the order these questions come up in, and just reassure them, because you know, you can reassure them, look, this is asked to everyone no matter what they answer, because it's an open question that we ask to everyone, like, what is the company that you work at? It's not like there's a drop down, so we're not selecting that person works in the NHS and then it screens out that next bit. It's just something that's asked to everyone, and you can let them know that. That's all right. But yeah, I wouldn't preface it with anything, because obviously that's a pretty tame question that's not going to be biased too much, but just to get into the habit of not biasing anyone either way by giving any sort of indication about the next question. Yeah, best to add an addendum, if anything. So if we do get to that point, they've said that they work in an NHS trust or they work for the NHS, then we ask, and do you work for the NHS? And they say, yeah, I just told you that. You can explain, yeah, I appreciate that. I know it's a bit of an odd one. We ask that to everybody. So I know you just answered that, but it is just one of those things. So yeah, just reassure people. It gets asked to everyone, no matter what they've said, just so that we can tick that off the list. To your first point, with regards to keeping control of people, yeah, that's always a difficult one. As we said before, that people like a chat. Sometimes, well, more on graduate outcomes, they will go off on tangents. They'll talk about stuff that isn't strictly relevant to the survey that we're doing. Yeah, I mean, so one way that we can start from the introduction onwards is to use people's names. When we ask for, oh, is that John speaking, or is that John Smith? They say yes. As soon as we've got that person confirming that's who they are, we should start using their name. So, brilliant. Hi, John. So the reason for the call, John, is that we are just talking about the Graduate Outcomes Survey. My name is Bernard Davis, and I'm calling from IFF Research on behalf of the University of Edinburgh. Now, the Graduate Outcomes Survey, John, is very quick. It's a very simple, straightforward set of questions, just finding out about what you've been doing since leaving university. I'd like to go through those questions with you now. Would that be all right, John? So already we've put John's name in 3-4 times, and then that is going to subconsciously kind of nudge them into thinking that we are more trustworthy, that we are likable. It's a subconscious thing. It is entirely out of our hands. We might think, oh yeah, I don't really like when people use my name. You can think that all you like. Subconsciously, you are more likely to rate someone as trustworthy when they've used your name more. That is true across the board. I teach this in all of the training sessions that I do. I went to buy a suit for a wedding a couple of months ago, actually almost a year ago now. Terrifying how fast time goes. I knew the suit I wanted. I picked it out online. I went to the tailor. I walked in. Salesman said to me, "Hi, my name's Henry. What's your name?" And I told him, and then I walked out with 2 new suits, a new watch, several new pairs of shoes, several shirts that I did not need. And then I was thinking back to the conversation that we've been having, and every time I tried something on, he'd go, "Bruno, that looks really nice. Might I suggest pairing it with this tie or whatever else?" And he'd been using my name constantly, and I'd been thinking throughout that whole conversation, this guy knows his stuff. Man, this guy's really, like, he's really good at his job. Pure sales tactic, but it works no matter who you are. It is worth just kind of starting out your calls by using people's names a bit more than you otherwise might. We can't see the people that we're speaking to. Obviously, we're just making phone calls. We only have the sound of our voice to convey everything that we need to. So what we say and how we say it, that's the big bits. So using people's names is essentially making eye contact through the phone, as creepy as that sounds. But it's an important part of what we do. So then that goes into the next part, which is keeping control of people while they're on the phone. When they start going off on tangents, or they start answering a question that you haven't asked, or not answering a question you have asked, that's where I would always interrupt them using their name, and then gently pull them back to the question that we're talking about. So, John, I'm going to stop you there because I think we're actually getting a bit off track, and I don't want to take up any more of your time than necessary. So we're framing it in their best interest. We're not saying that they're doing anything wrong. We're just saying we're getting a bit off track. The phrasing there, "we are getting a bit off track," means that we're not singling them out. and saying we're getting a bit off track, and I just want to go back to what we were asking about before, which was, and then you can lead into the question, justifying it. I don't want to take up any more of your time than necessary. I've already taken up quite a lot of your time. I want to get you back to whatever you were doing beforehand. It frames it in their best interest, so it seems like we're looking out for them. A lot of it is just making sure that it sounds like we are kind of on their side, which we are. We're not, we're never trying to scam anyone. We're never trying to nick anyone's pension. That's not what we do here. We are just trying to get this feedback. So when people do go off on tangents, it's just about politely interrupting them. And don't worry about sounding rude. As long as you sound polite and you're doing it politely, they're not going to get annoyed. And again, when we're framing it in their best interest, I've already taken up 5 minutes of your time. I don't want to take up too much longer. So I'm just going to move on to the next question now, which is, and then you can segue straight into that, or if you need to get them to answer the question that you've already asked and they're not. So John, I'm just going to stop you there. I just want to focus on the specifics of this question. So what we're asking for here is, and then ask the question again. And it's just about getting them refocused on the question that you're asking, rather than just allowing them to talk and talk and talk and talk, because they will. If you let people go, they'll talk until they check the time, realize that they've been talking for 15, 20 minutes, and then go, you said this would take 10 minutes. Bye, hang up. So it's just about, phrasing it in their best interest. I'm interrupting you because I don't want to take up any more of your time than necessary. Does that all make sense?
Yep. Thank you very much for the pointers.
All good. We've got, there's quite a lot of stuff on call control on Bob as well. If you look in the training document section and just go to the graduate outcomes tag or call control tag, there should be some kind of graphics that have the roundabout of what I was just saying there. So yeah, if you want to check those, do feel free. Hamza, you're up next.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yep, come through loud and clear.
All right. So essentially I had a question. I've seen this with a lot of people. They want to know if the survey is compulsory, and I don't know if it's wrong to do this. I haven't done this, but would it be wrong to say, yeah, the survey is compulsory just to try and get that complete? Like, is there anything?
We can't do that.
All right.
So yeah, we can't tell people it is compulsory when it's not, purely because yeah, that's just lying to them at that point. HESA are very strict with what we can and can't say. We've got to be truthful and honest with what we're talking about. Because yeah, if people feel that they've been deceived, they will make complaints. Those get fed back to HESA. That then costs us goodwill with our client. So yeah, with anything, we always need to be truthful. Obviously, we want to be upfront about what we're doing. And as I said before, look, we're not trying to scam anyone. We're not trying to, get anyone's bank details and nick all their money. We just need some feedback about what they've been doing since leaving uni. So, if people ask, is this compulsory? Answer honestly, no, it's not. However, and then we can pivot into our next point. So a lot of this, and this is for anyone who was in the B2B session previously, I mentioned pivoting a lot. A lot of what we do is improvisation. We can be as prepared as we like, but we're not going to know every objection that comes our way before it does. I use the example quite often of when we ask to speak to someone and who the person on the other end of the line says, no, sorry, they passed away. That's always an awkward one. It throws people off. Someone came up with an objection that they had in the B2B session previously, which was, I'm going to be in prison in 6 months' time, so this doesn't seem worthwhile. I haven't heard that one before. I've worked here 6 years. That's a new one to me. So yeah, there's always going to be stuff that throws us off. A lot of this is just down to how we can, improvise and pivot onto a new approach. So if someone says, well, is this compulsory? Otherwise, I don't really want to do it. No, it's not compulsory. It is entirely voluntary. However, let me tell you why it's important that I ask you some questions. So whatever university they went to, so the University of Edinburgh has asked us to reach out to you to get these questions answered so that the next batch of students who come through have a good understanding of where they might go after university and what to expect. Obviously, it's completely anonymous. Or sorry, no, that's entirely wrong. Ignore that. It's anonymized when the results are published, so you can let people know. Once the results are published, it's all anonymized. It's technically not anonymous because the results do go back to HESA in a named format. But for anything that's actually published, when the graduate outcomes form survey findings get published, that is all anonymous. So it's not anonymous at the time, but when it's published, no one's going to have their name attached. So you can use that as a reassurance. Like, some people are just going to stick to it and say, well, look, if it's not anonymous, if it's not compulsory, I'm not doing it. But yeah, it's just one of those things. We can't lie to people. So we just have to be honest and then justify that. You know, okay, yeah, it's not compulsory, but here's why you should do it all the same. And then explain to them why we're doing the survey. You know, it is so that future students have a better understanding of what they can expect after finishing university. It also helps universities to tailor the, you know, the courses that they do. If they see that 20% of people are actually happy with the course that they did, they know that course isn't working well. They need to retool that and work on how that can be done in a more you know, productive fashion to make people feel actually like it was worthwhile. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. It was just like, I don't know. I've had like so many times where as soon as I say no, it's not compulsory, they just say like they just hang up and then that's that in it. I was just thinking, is there anything against that? You know what I'm saying? Because there's been times where before they've obviously been, I've said no, it's not compulsory, but then I obviously mentioned like, you know, this information can help future students, current students, and obviously you pivot into that and then you can get the complete through that. But yeah, no, that's just it really.
It's one of those things. We can't you know, misconstrue the truth to people. It's not compulsory, so we can't tell them it is. It is a voluntary thing. It's absolutely up to them. If they do just hang up, obviously we just code that as a hang up and we move on to the next sample. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's a bit awkward, and some people will just, you know, say, well, in that case, I'm not interested, and that's that. But wherever we can, try and, you know, justify why they should take part. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then we move on to the next one. It's all right. It's not the end of the world. Rana, let's go to you.
Hi, how are you? You okay?
Yeah, very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Right, it's just a quick one. I think you sort of like answered it, but I'm gonna make sure. When we were in training, we were told we have to always use full names. Now, say you read out the introduction and you say, well, is this John Smith speaking? And on the second page, it uses the name again. But at that stage, is it okay if we just use the first name?
Yeah. So as long as you've asked for them by their full name,
Yeah.
absolutely go to just the regular name.
Yeah.
Their first name. I would always say best to do that. It's more conversational. It's obviously, with graduate outcomes especially, I would never go with the, oh, is that Mr. John Smith or is that Miss Jane Smith? We're often, I mean, 95% of the time we're speaking to young people, usually 21 to 24-ish, who just got out of uni, they're in their first jobs, all that. Using any prefixes there is always a dangerous game. When I answer the phone and someone says, is that Mr. Davison, I immediately think either HMRC, my doctor, a scam, because that's the only people I would expect to call me Mr. Davison. Whereas if I answer the phone and says, oh, hi, is that Bruno? I have no idea who that is. It's immediately much more conversational. So yes, you do have to ask for them by their full name first, but once they've acknowledged that is who you're speaking to, absolutely drop their last name, just use their first name.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Good. All good. Nora, you asked, can we ask shift questions today too? Will Hibak be here later on for shift questions? Yes, absolutely. For anyone who has any shift-related questions, pop them in the chat. I will not be the best person to ask about shift-related things, but Hibak will be joining us in the next 10-ish minutes. And she'll be able to help with any shift-related questions. So yeah, if you have anything like that, pop them in the chat. For anyone who needs to access the chat, it should be up here-ish in the center of the screen near the top. There's a chat button. You can pop in any questions that you have shift-related, and Hibak will answer those once she arrives. For general questions, I don't see any hands up, so do feel free to just shout out or pop your hand up now. Joanne, yeah, you got another question. Fire away.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't going to because I didn't want to take any more time.
That's all right.
I thought of the questions that I was going to ask to start with as well.
course.
Now, I've heard different things of how long probation is. I've even had somebody reply back, "We don't know. It's not us." That was actually on it, something along that lines, and it was like the management deal with it. I can't remember, but it was along that lines, and I don't know. Probation, is it the 32 hours? Is it like 2 weeks? Is it a month? No one has actually got back to me on any of that. So that was one of the questions. The other one is on NDAs, November Delta Alpha. How do we stand on that? Because yesterday and before I've had about it, because it was a company, from where they were saying, I could understand perhaps why they weren't going to say much more. So I had to put down, due to confidentiality, that's all they could say, because I did actually try and get the information, but it was like a no. So, I mean, do we get marked down for that if that's what they've said?
No. Look, if someone's under an NDA, if what someone does is confidential, that's that. Obviously, we should go through the rest of the survey with them, but this is especially true when we're speaking to people who work in the military, for people who work in the entertainment industry. There's quite a lot of NDAs.
That was what it was.
Yeah, there you go. So look, as long as we try to get that information out of them, if they say, "Look, I'm under an NDA, I can't talk about any of this," all you need to put down is confidential or refused in the space. That's absolutely fine, as long as you've made a genuine effort to try and get that information. Yeah, that's all good. And you can just reassure them as well. I appreciate that. Don't worry. If there is anything you can't say, just let me know. We won't be asking any any personal questions that you have to answer. If there's anything that you aren't comfortable with, please do just let me know, and we can move on to the next question. But we have to make a concerted effort to actually ask the question. We can't preempt it. So even if once they've said, I'm under an NDA, I can't discuss that, we can't use that information for the next question. We still have to ask that question and get them to say, again, I'm under an NDA. Like, we can't just assume they won't answer anything. So we have to keep going. For your first question, Hibak can clarify this, but yes, as far as I'm aware, it is 32 hours or 2 weeks, whichever comes first. So either you've worked 32 hours or you've hit the 2-week period. That would be the probationary period.
Right. Thank you very much, because no one else has been telling me that.
It's a bit of a nebulous one. I think people get a bit confused with it, but yeah, it's either you work for 32 hours like in your first week, or maybe you hit 30 hours after 2 weeks, and that would be the cutoff.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All good. Okay. Nora, I think you had a hand up, or was that a shift question? In which case, Hibak will be here in a second.
I did have my hand up in terms of consumer as well. I did want to ask, is there a way how I can kind of condense or kind of decrease my time doing the surveys? It's just that I'm seeing other team members are able to do surveys like 15, 18, 24, 25. And I know some team leaders said, no, look at quality rather than quantity, but I'm a bit kind of conflicted where shall I just speed up and not, like, obviously I do make sure that everything is asked and everything is like done to perfection, to be honest, but I just feel like I'm missing out on getting a bonus when I'm doing quality over quantity.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is one of those awkward things where they both matter. Quality matters, of course, quantity matters as well when we want to hit targets. It is one of those awkward bits. What I would say is, first of all, is there any sections that you find take longer than you would think they should? Is there anything kind of jump out that you're like, I think this is going on a bit?
Not really, to be honest. When they're just saying they're doing paid work for an employer, I can whiz through it pretty much like 10-12 minutes. I did have an issue with the spelling kind of double click button, but I managed to get that fixed with a text, so that I've become much more quicker now. But I think it's when they do like a number of things, there's a lot to fill. So they're doing like 4 activities, and they're also doing further study. So there's quite a lot of things to fill. And in terms of them telling me too much information, to be honest, I just kind of listen to it and they're like, okay, let's move on. But there isn't anything that I feel is making the conversations longer, but they are long.
Okay. I mean, so again, it's difficult for me to kind of take a guess without seeing your calls. What I would say is, firstly, yeah, definitely flag with the TL and say, hey, I see other people taking this amount of time. I want to know what I can do differently to bring my time down. Now, if, as you said, you can get the survey done in 10, 12-ish minutes when they're just doing paid work for an employer, that sounds like maybe it's because they're just doing more things. At which point, yeah, I mean, it's going to take longer no matter what we do.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I mean, it's just making sure that we're talking at a good pace. Obviously, we don't want to go too quickly so people don't understand us, and then they have to say pardon me every time we ask a question,
Yeah.
which extends it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, once you kind of fall into that kind of good pace, I think it is just about making sure that firstly we're keeping people on track, making sure that they're answering questions effectively and quickly. So if they are asking things that are just or answering things that are unrelated or trying to drag it off track, pulling them back onto the topic that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But I think it's always going to change, and I think we do also get into the habit of feeling like it's an us problem when sometimes it is just a respondent problem. Like, you know, it because it feels like, oh well, you know, I'm taking far too long in all of these surveys, when actually that was maybe 2 of your surveys that took 19 minutes, but the other 2 took 12.
Yeah.
And then it feels like that's been all of them, when actually it's, you know, the average is then what, like 14, 15.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, that is where I would say do rely on your team leader, because they have that ability to just skip through it doesn't take very much time at all for a team leader to just jump on a call and then skip between questions and see where without putting it up on screen, when a TL grabs the survey, they can see how long each question takes at the bottom of the screen, like a little timeline scrub.
Yeah,
So
I always have my eye on that as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
but I actually sorry about that. I just want to say I actually do like write down each survey how long it takes, so I can track how efficient I'm going and speed. So pretty much I have been tracking every single survey and how long that's taken, so I can just kind of speed up, because I do feel like some surveys I do in 12 minutes, some surveys I do in 20, some surveys I do in 30, like it varies. But I have asked a lot of team leaders to listen in. They've all given me positive feedback, so I don't know how I can speed things. That's the only issue.
I mean, if you are getting good feedback and you're hitting target and all the rest, I wouldn't stress it too much.
Okay.
If you are falling under target and your team leaders are saying this is something that you need to improve on, that's where I would say definitely, I mean, either grab me or grab your TL and see what can be changed. But if you're hitting target and your strike rate's looking good and everything, and you just want to speed up with them, I think that's where it just becomes about tempering your own expectations for how long surveys will take.
Okay.
Thinking back to when I was on the phones, the fastest I ever did a survey was 4 minutes, and that was they had done absolutely nothing. So we coded doing something else. They hadn't been doing any further study. They didn't really want to give any answers for most of the subjective well-being questions. Yeah. And they skipped over a bunch of that. That still took 4 minutes from getting them started on the call to wrapping up. So I think a lot of the time we worry about the length it's taking, but it's gonna vary. There are going to be times where it's going to be 10 minutes. There are going to be times where it's going to be 15 to 20 minutes. Okay. Especially when we've got more international sample in play, which used to be one big batch. Now it's just mixed throughout. That could be something where people are speaking English as a second language. That also can extend it massively. It's just one of those things. It's gonna vary unless your strike rate is falling below where it should be. So obviously we want to be aiming for 2.72, 2.71, 2.72 per hour, and then the costed is 2.35, which is where it becomes a more of a concern. But yeah, as long as you're sitting above that 2.72 line, I wouldn't stress it too much. Okay. And then do get in touch with your TLs and ask.
Perfect. Hey, thank you so much. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Bruno.
Nice one. Hibs, do we have you in the call? We do. Nice one. Cool. So Hibak's joining us. I'll let her introduce herself. But if you've got any shift related questions, Hibak is the person to ask.
Hello. Hi, guys. First of all, so many cameras off. We'd love to see your faces. Yeah, I mean, I'm here back. Don't know if you've been part of the last two sessions that I've joined. But if you haven't, then I am the panel coordinator here. I deal with practically all shifts related queries and general interviewer queries, well-being related stuff, supporting the interviewers and so on. So yeah, if you have any burning questions, then feel free to ask them. I'd probably say specific individual questions. Email those to me because I wouldn't be able to get into the specifics of whatever your case is. But if it's like a general query, then I'm definitely happy to kind of field those.
Cool. Go Nora, then Hamza.
Okay, so my questions are just really shifts kind of general questions. I wanted to ask you, sometimes when you open the shifts and then you know you've got some shifts that you can book this week or like tomorrow or the day after, and sometimes I click them by accident and I can't change it, and then I have to kind of put in the form and it was just literally by accident that it's been clicked. Does that affect my cancellation stats?
No, not necessarily, unless if it's like, so we draw up the finalized version of the rota the Friday before for each week. So let's say this week commencing what are we on? Week commencing 29th. We would have drawn up the finalized version at around 4 p.m. on Friday the 26th. So if you were booked in for 5 shifts, but then you're showing up for by the end of that week or during that week, you're only showing up for 3 shifts, then the assumption is you've cancelled 2. So that would count towards your cancellation rate. However, if you're booked into 5, let's say, and then during the week you then ended up booking in for 2 more, then you cancel those, you'll go back down to 5. So it won't alter that in terms of cancellation rates. The other side to it as well is if, for instance, you were booked into 5 shifts, let's say on the Friday, then during the week you need to reschedule them or you need to cancel one, but then you've added another one on for later in the week, then it balances out. I think the cancellation rates kind of negatively work against people is if they actually genuinely cancel those and it's at a high rate, and they don't kind of replace them or try and substitute them where possible. So yeah, if it's I mean, I hope that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. Just really quickly, my second question is that so most of the B2B you either get like 9 from 9 till 4:30 or 10 till 3. But what is it the case that if you can work from 10 to 4:30, do I still book that shift and then ask just for me to start at like an hour later, or no, don't bother booking that shift even though I'm available to work?
So are you saying that you can only see a 10 to 4:30 and then you'd ideally like to work like an 11 to 4:30?
Yeah, but it will be the case where I'll see a 9 till 4:30, but I can ideally work from 10 to 4:30. Do I book that 9 till 4:30 and then message and say, I want to change it to 10?
Yeah, I would recommend. So shifts are they do get filled up quite quickly these days. So I would say when you see a shift and you want to work that day, book it in, and then you can always email in. So we look at emails. So let's say the shift releases at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. Then we sort through any kind of amendments or anything like that between Wednesday and Friday. And then by the Friday, you should hear back. And what you would do in that case is if you saw the 9 to 4:30, then you would email in either Tuesday evening or I'd probably say Wednesday morning at the latest, just to say I've booked into 9 to 4, let's say on a Monday, but I'd like the 10 to 4:30. Can you please amend that for me? And we can always do that and get back to you. But I'd always say try and grab your shifts, even if it's not the exact ones that you want, just so that you're booked into shifts. It's easier for us to amend than it is to bring you on if we're overbooked. So yeah, always try and grab them and then email for amendments.
So that would also apply with the consumer. So if I book from like 4 to 9, but I can only do from 4 half 7, I can just email and say, look, I can only do till half 7.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Cool. Hamza's up next.
Do you know when the next B2B training would be?
Yes, and no. I mean, yes to you asking the question. No, we don't know just yet, only because we are limited on B2B hours at the moment. We don't foresee any training at the moment happening. However, things do constantly change. You know, a project could come in maybe, I don't know, in a couple of weeks, and we might need to get the resource for it, which means we might need to train up more people for B2B. So things do change quite frequently in the sense of like, additions and so on and so forth. So I would say keep your eyes peeled for any communications. We will always send out emails to kind of get people to register their interest, or if you have registered interest, then we'll note that and reach out to you when we do have B2B training happening next. But as of today, we don't have any scheduled coming up.
All right, thank you.
No worries. Any other questions?
Let's go to Abel next.
Hi. So this is a bit of a general question. Can you please run through like the general expectations of if you do want to cancel a shift? I'm assuming we're gonna have to, because I haven't had to do that yet, but I'm assuming we'd have to email the shift's email.
No, so if you're cancelling a shift that's starting within 24 hours, then you would need to cancel via the HubSpot form. This also means if you're cancelling a shift, so after 10 o'clock on a Friday, if you need to cancel a weekend shift, you'd also use the cancellation HubSpot form, regardless of, like, let's say if you're cancelling on a Friday at like 2 p.m, but you're trying to cancel a Saturday or a Sunday shift, that's obviously outside of the within 24-hour scope. But because we don't work during the weekend, we wouldn't be able to see that. So weekends and shifts starting within 24 hours, you use the cancellation HubSpot form. Whereas if it's like a Monday to Thursday, you're trying to cancel a weekend, then that's outside of the 24 hours, you'd email shifts. So any shifts that are pertaining to 24 to 48 hours or starting within that time frame, you would email shifts and we'll get those sorted for you. And then any shifts outside of the 48-hour window, you should be able to do that yourself on the booking portal.
Okay, sweet. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you.
Nice one. Rihanna.
Hi there. Got a quick one. Right, with the bookings, I'm finding obviously, like you just said, the availability is a bit less at the moment. So I've started my week last week, and I've managed to get 9 hours last week, but this week I think I've only managed to get about 4 hours. And then what it is, I'm going away for 2 weeks. So I know my 32 hours is going to take slightly longer. Is that going to affect me?
I would say we're still kind of early on. We still have about just under, I guess, around 2 months to kind of go through that period. So we're wanting everybody to finish or have done their hours by the end of November, ideally. We do encourage, where hours are available, we do encourage that you do try and get those wrapped up as soon as, because obviously for you it means you get a pay increase if you passed and so on. But I would recommend trying to get those as soon as possible. But if there aren't any shifts available, on the portal, try and email in. We'll always try and accommodate where there is that possibility. And if you need, obviously you said you're going away for 2 weeks, but you will still have the rest of, October / November to be able to try and close that gap in terms of the hours.
Okay. And when you say we can email in, do we email in at IFF shifts?
Yeah, email shifts and just say that you've tried to book on some shifts, but there aren't any available on the booking portal. Are there any available for this week? And just the most helpful thing is if people email in their organ number, their full name, the shifts that they're after, the exact shifts that they're after, even if it's a question of are there any shifts, it's always more helpful when people email in the exact shifts that they were after, even though they're asking the question, because what we can then do is go and find out, come back, let you know. Otherwise, it would be a question of, okay, let's find out what shifts this person wants, and let's see if we do have that, and so on and so forth. So to kind of avoid the back and forth and the probing, I'd always say the best practice is ask the question, yes, but include your organ number, your full name, and then also let us know what exact shifts you're after, and we can always work around that. There might be times where we might say we're fully booked, there haven't been any cancellations, or we can't, there aren't any gaps to bridge, then we will always communicate that to you. But otherwise, if there are, we'll always try and accommodate as much as we can.
Thank you.
No worries.
Cool. Abel, did you have another question, or was your hand raised from the last time? Sorry.
Oh, from the last one, sorry.
All good, no worries. Then Nora, you're up next.
Hi, hello. Just another quick
Hiya.
question. So I think I had two shifts where I had to kind of, I worked for like 2 hours and a half, 3 hours, and I had to leave. One because I had to do like a prep for an endoscopy, and then the other one I wasn't feeling great. But my team leader said that this is going to affect my performance because how many surveys I done will still go through like the 5-hour shift rather than just the 2 hours and a half that I did. Is that correct? Is that accurate?
Yes and no, I'd probably say, because strike rates are per hour. So if you've hit, let's say if the strike rate is 2.71, or the target strike rate is 2.71, and let's say you've done an hour and you've managed to get 3 surveys in that hour, then your strike rate will remain that 2.71, or it will probably be like that 3 if you've hit 3 an hour. What will affect it is, so the way the strike rates and the targets kind of work is essentially the hours that you've worked against your output and what you've produced. So if you've like worked 5 hours, for instance, and the target was, let's say, 14, and you've left at 11, then yeah, there is a gap. But let's say if you were booked in for 5 hours, but actually you've and your target was 14, but actually you've only worked 3 hours, then you should be within target. So a lot of it is just to do with how much of the target strike rate that you've actually hit within the hours that you've worked. The strike rate dips when you work more hours and your output is less, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah.
So yeah,
So
I think
yeah.
I think that a good measure, especially on graduate outcomes, a good measure is 3 an hour. 3 completed surveys an hour is always the best measure. So if you've worked 3 hours, and technically, yeah, about 9 completes should kind of seal it for you. So yeah, that's the best way to kind of like look at it benchmark-wise.
Okay, so then if let's just say before the shift starts, like in 5 minutes, I get a phone call and like, okay, you're booked in for a procedure tomorrow. Is it best just to cancel that shift there and then, or do I just work as much hours I can, like if I can do 3 or 4 hours instead of like my 5-hour shift?
No, I think work. If you our shorter shifts are 2 hours, so it's doable. But at the same token, it's just a matter of sometimes 2-hour shifts can't and aren't always that productive, which is probably what the team leaders are saying to you, because it takes a while to build that momentum when you start up a shift. So maybe maybe you've done one survey in that 1 hour, and then maybe actually you get 5 more in the second hour, which is it levels out then your performance. Whereas if you were just to do that 1 hour and you ended up with that one survey, it does then impact your strike rate. So it's just about, I think that performance piece against the hours is more so about your momentum levels and so on. But if you do end up hitting targets off the bat, and you get your 3 an hour, and you've only you get your 3 first hour, second hour you get your 3 as well, but you're only booked in for 2 hours, or you can only work 2 hours, then technically you've hit the mark. But it's just that getting off the mark piece that's in relation to the performance.
Okay, because I was just told it's better to cancel the shifts today by my team leader, so I don't know what to take.
I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend that, because that impacts your cancellation rate. I would say any queries, to be fair, team leaders shouldn't be advising on this, but any queries like that against your performance and your shifts and the hours that you're doing, that is a shifts related question, so that needs to come straight to the shifts team. So if you're ever in doubt, you can email me directly, or you can email shifts.
Okay, brilliant. Last question now is just on the contract. It says that it's upon successful completion of your training period, your pay will be increased to £13.85 per hour. So is this like an old contract that when you sign? Because I know the hour rates completely changed now, or is that still the same?
In terms of, so you're asking if you need to sign a second contract now that your hours have changed?
No. So when you come to sign in the contract in general, it says that you will be paid £12.21 per hour for training. But I do believe it's more than that. It's it's 13 something, and now we're getting paid after probation. We're getting paid £15.52.
Yeah.
That's not what it says in the contract.
So let me just get the pay rates up. So the 15.52 is, I know that's a standard rate, but that's including holiday pay. The contracts will only always say your base rate. So the base for the standard rate is 13.85 an hour. And then if you include holiday pay, which you will get in each payroll, is 15.52. You'll notice in your pay slip it will say, it will look like a bonus piece or like an additional line to say how many hours on top of you've done in terms of holiday hours, but then you'll always have the standard base rate. So the contracts will always only indicate the base rates. So if it says 13.85, then you can assume that's you getting 15.52 with holiday pay included, and then the 12.21 is the base rate for training, and I believe it's like 13 something with including holiday pay.
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's the base pay that it's referencing.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Hibak. Thank you.
No worries.
Nice one. Cool. We'll go to Dami, and then we'll call it a day because we're already over. So Dami, yours will be the last question.
I just had a few quick questions that I wanted to ask. The first one is that in terms of the hours, is there a certain number of hours that you can't work over? Because for some reason, the shifts that I was, like when I was trying to go onto the shifts or just book on shifts, I couldn't see the normal standard shifts that I was booking. So is it like a thing where, let's say, for example, if you work the 3 to 9 shift for like a whole month, you can't really get onto the 3 to 9s anymore because it's prioritized to other people, or what is it?
No, that's we don't prioritize shifts over other people, which is that's why we go out each week to everybody, just to kind of make it more of a fairer process for everybody to book in. Unfortunately, sometimes people aren't able to book in because the hours don't match the number of people that we're offering work to. So we don't ever kind of cherry pick what hours or what shift patterns people can do. Is it that you're just not seeing the shift patterns anymore?
Yeah, so for example, when like I didn't get any email about any new shifts coming up. I just had to go on the portal and I just saw the shifts there. And then when I was trying to book onto the shifts, it was only offering me like 2-hour shifts.
Was this for next week shifts?
Yeah, so next week and the week after. So yeah, the week after, and then the week after that, so the 20th week as well.
So so in terms of pre-release weeks, we haven't released those fully yet. So any of you that joined after they were released are probably just going to see them there if people haven't, like, if there are gaps in bookings. So you could just book into those as normal. You're not gonna receive an additional email because we're not releasing any additional shifts in that regard. What we're going to do going forward is we will be releasing, I don't know if I probably should explain that. We've got pre-releases and then we've got the main releases. So pre-releases happen typically outside of this period. They happen every 2 weeks for shifts. Well, every week for shifts starting in 2 weeks. So for instance, this week, if I was to pre-release, I would have pre-released the week commencing 13th of October. And it's just a very small portion of the total hours that are required for that week. Then the rest of those hours, once they're fully confirmed by project control, then come out the week before it on the Tuesday at 5 o'clock. So the Monday will be the pre-release, and then they choose for 2 weeks in advance. Then the Monday at 5 p.m. is the main release for the following week for any additional hours on top of the pre-release hours that have already been pre-released. Some weeks in our quieter periods, it might be that projects may have been don't want any additional hours to add on, but we'll always communicate that to you. But we're in our busy period at the moment, and in our busy periods we typically pre-release a month in advance, so those shifts would have been pre-released a few weeks back to everybody that was already on the panel. Now, for anybody new who started after that, they wouldn't have received the pre-release email because nothing additional was being added on until the week before as like main release shifts. So for instance, week commencing 13th, I'll be adding on the additional hours that have been confirmed on Tuesday at 5 p.m. So you should be receiving that email on Tuesday at 5 p.m. But I would say, Danny, drop me an email because you should have received that email on Tuesday this week. I would have sent an email out for the main release for next week, which you should have received, to be fair. So I will look into what's happened with yours and we go from there. But I'd say you can expect going forward, especially for this month, the main release hours on a Tuesday at 5 o'clock. And I'd always recommend I know sometimes it takes a couple of minutes just to kind of adjust because there's like over 1,000 of you to kind of email, so it can be a bit slow in terms of the system getting to everybody. But what I would say is we always open bang on at 5 o'clock. Prior to that, we're still releasing and we're still sorting through the shifts. So you are going to see shifts on the portal, but the portal is going to be closed because what we don't want is people booking in prematurely, which is quite unfair because some people have seen it early and they haven't been notified and they've booked in before others. And then by the time we've notified people, all shifts have been snapped up. So we aim to kind of release at the same time for everybody to get, for when they get the email. The one thing to note is if you do prematurely log in before 5 o'clock and you do see that, you will get the sign in not possible error message because it means that, you know, the portal's closed for our release. What you would need to do is log out and wait till 5 o'clock, because if you do try and wait logged in and it goes, you know, comes around to 5 o'clock and it's time to start booking in, you will continue to get that sign in not possible because you need to refresh it. Essentially, you need to log out and log back in.
So that actually happened to me on Tuesday because I had a shift for the Tuesday and I had a shift for the Wednesday, and then I saw that there were shifts available at on the Tuesday. So I tried to press it and it said sign in not possible. So I went on my Wednesday one and then I clicked it to take it off to then go to try put it back on, and it actually removed my Wednesday shift as well. So I sent an email. I sent an email at 5:02 to basically say like I had the shift there. It was booked originally, but then it got removed and said sign in not possible. And they said that they're gonna get back to me by end of play tomorrow, as in yesterday, but no one got back to me. So I was just a bit conscious about that.
Yeah, I'd say forward that to me directly and I'll look into it for you to see what happened. Okay. But what I would say and recommend to everybody is on that Tuesday between 3 and 5 we are working on the releases, so things are going to be closed. I would highly recommend being super careful about removing any shifts because it will allow you to remove within, you know, shifts that are starting in 48 hours or more. However, it will not allow you to add back on, and there might be a chance that you do miss out on rebooking those. So it is super important that you are hyper vigilant about kind of navigating the booking portal between 3 and 5 on Tuesdays. And I'd say don't try and log in before 5. Log in at 5 and then go from there, just so you don't get that sign in error message.
Nice one, guys. Cool. I just want to go over a quick couple of points people have put in the chat. Mohammed's asked, how would we know we passed probation after 32 hours because I book sessions after that? So do I continue or cancel them until I get a confirmation? Yeah, you should just get an email confirmation.
Yeah, continue booking until you get the confirmation. We check the data every 48 hours. So let's say if on a Monday you have hit your 32 hours and we're next checking on a Wednesday, there is a chance if you're booked in on Tuesday, you will go over those 32 hours. We'll always backdate, but we'll get back to you then on the Wednesday, for instance. We'll communicate if you've passed or failed. And if you've failed, then we would kind of do the admin side of things on our end, so it doesn't matter if you're booked in or not because we'll essentially sort that out for you. So I'd say continue booking until you've been notified.
Yeah. Naima, you asked how do you log into the QA portal? I think that's probably best if you just grab your TL on shift. They'll walk you through it because they can just take you through that.
Okay,
Joanne, all good. Joanne, you asked if you could have a quick chat with myself and Hibak for a minute or two. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Stay on the call. Yeah, that's fine. Nice one, guys. Everyone else, if you do have any further questions, please do feel free to send either myself an email or a message on WebEx, or you can send Hibak an email if that's a shift-related question, I'll put our email addresses in the chat. If you guys want to reach out, please do not hesitate to do so. You can also, get me on WebEx. Hibak's not always as accessible on WebEx, but if you want to tag me on WebEx, use the search bar at the top, either search my name or just pop in my email address, and I should just pop up. Thanks, guys. If you just use the leave button in the top right-hand corner, and then,
I just have a quick question. I just want to ask, are we allowed to book the shifts while we're